A new UN draft resolution on North Korean human rights calls for violators to stand at the International Criminal Court. The Korean military faces yet another serious disciplinary issue. A division commander on active duty has been arrested for sexually harassing a female junior officer. And yesterday, Seoul marked the 568th Hangeul Day, with events commemorating the nation's famously scientific alphabet. Hello and welcome to News Today on KBS World. It's Friday, October 10th. I'm Luke Clary. A new UN draft resolution on North Korean human rights calls for referring officials responsible for rights violations taking place in the communist regime to the International Criminal Court. The resolution may target North Korean leader Kim Jong-un himself.
The European Union has begun circulating a new UN draft resolution on North Korea's human rights problems to interested countries. The key to the draft resolution is bringing those in North Korea responsible for human rights violations to the International Criminal Court. Names are not mentioned, but those responsible in a country ruled by one man has to refer to none other than its leader, Kim Jong-un. This strong resolution targeting the regime's supreme leader was somewhat expected ever since the UN Commission of Inquiry issued a report in February on its probe into the North's human rights conditions. The inquiry had recommended the referral of North Korean leaders to the ICC. What followed was a UN Human Rights Council resolution urging the UN Security Council to refer the North's human rights violations to the International Court.
The United States looks forward to working with and other nations on a strong UN resolution that carries these recommendations forward.
UN resolutions on Pyongyang's human rights have been adopted annually since 2003, but the North's response is different this year. Since the draft resolution began circulation, North Korea hosted its first ever human rights briefing.
And DPRK is totally against misusing human rights for regime change in the country.
When the draft resolution becomes final, the General Assembly Third Committee, which handles human rights issues, will put it to a vote late next month. The resolution will then be sent to the UN General Assembly in mid-December.
Local residents of Samcheok in Gangwon Province rejected a plan to build a nuclear plant in the city by an overwhelming margin of 85% in a recent referendum. The mayor has demanded that the plan be withdrawn, but the government says the poll is not legally binding.
Citizens of Samcheok have made it clear that they are against the construction of a nuclear power plant in their city. In a referendum on the construction of a nuclear plant held yesterday, 85% of 28,867 people who voted cast their ballots against the nuclear plant coming to their neighborhood.
반대죠. 이게 핵이라는 건 사람이 어떻게 된다는 걸 모르잖아요. 원자력은. 그러니까 일본에서 일어나는 거 봐도 그렇고.
Although the poll took place on a public holiday, 67.9% of the 42,488 registered voters took part in the latest vote, illustrating the local residents' keen interest in the issue. The voter turnout rate stands at 47%, even when the figure is based on the Samcheok area's roughly 61,000 court-designated electorate. Samcheok Mayor Kim Jong-un said he would take follow-up measures to force the government to withdraw Samcheok's designation as the site of a future nuclear plant. Mayor Kim was elected into office on the strength of his campaign against the nuclear plant.
원전 유치 신청 철회를 할 거고요. 또 전원 개발 예정 지구를 해제해달라고 건의를 할 겁니다.
Civic groups opposing the nuclear plant will also urge the government to accept the referendum result and cancel plans to build. However, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced immediately after the Samcheok poll that the vote is not legally binding and that it will go ahead with the original plan. The government's stance is likely to fuel the conflict surrounding the referendum result.
Japanese media report that Tokyo has conveyed to Seoul that it will be difficult for Japan to propose a solution to the wartime sex slavery issue, a major thorn in the sides of bilateral relations. Here's more.
Japanese newspaper Nihon Keizai has reported that Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's administration conveyed this stance to the Korean government. The report says that Tokyo clarified this position during recent meetings with Seoul, including at the Foreign Ministry Director-level talks last month and Strategic Vice Ministerial talks held earlier this month. The Korean government has continuously urged Japan to take the first step in coming up with a solution to the sexual slavery issue, as it was the perpetrator of the crimes during wartime. With Japan's latest move, the chances for a summit between Abe and President Park Geun-hye has become even more slim. Japan's stringent response is believed to have stemmed from a recent action by domestic daily Asahi Shimbun, which is known for taking a stance and urging its government to take responsibility for its actions. The newspaper recently retracted a report published in August related to the matter, saying it was erroneous. Asahi's withdrawal of the previous report on the sex slave issue served to benefit the Abe administration, which is bent on attempts to deny the 1993 Kono statements by all means. Koichi Hagiuda, who serves as special advisor to Abe, has also recently remarked that the Kono statement has outlived its role and vowed to announce a new statement next year, which marks the 70th year since the end of World War II.
The Korean military is facing another serious disciplinary issue. This time, an Army Division commander on active duty has been arrested for sexually harassing a female junior officer. Here's the story.
The Korean Army has arrested a division commander actively serving in a Seoul metropolitan area base for sexually harassing a female junior officer. An Army official reported that this division commander had allegedly called the female officer to his office and sexually harassed her several times. This is the first time that a division commander on active duty has been placed under emergency arrest and investigated for sexual harassment charges. The division commander is accused of making sexual advances such as hugging the female officer from behind 5 times over the past 2 months. A source inside the Army reported that the harassed female officer had recently reported the incidents to her barrack counselor. He also added that the Army headquarters had received a report of the incident on October 8th and ordered the immediate arrest of the commander yesterday afternoon. The Army has placed the victim under its protection and plans to severely punish the commanding officer if the charges are found to be true. The Minister of National Defense convened on Friday morning an emergency video conference of key commanders from all branches to discuss measures to improve military discipline. However, this is just the latest in a long series of disciplinary problems in the military, including the deadly shooting in the 22nd Division and the beating death of an Army private by his fellow soldiers. Concerns have been raised that the sexual harassment charges against a high-ranking general will further exacerbate the public's growing distrust of the military.
The Korean government held a briefing on its economy in New York, where representatives stressed that it's safe to invest in the country amid growing concerns of capital outflow ahead of an expected U.S. interest rate hike.
The Korean government held a briefing on the state of its economy in New York, the financial capital of the world. The session focused on the policy direction of the Seoul government's new economic team, as well as recent jitters in the global financial market. Especially with the U.S. Federal Reserve likely to raise its key interest rate, fanning worries of a capital run from emerging markets, the government stressed that Korea's economic fundamentals differed from other emerging markets. The government backed this assessment, citing the country's sufficient foreign exchange reserves, low percentage of short-term debt, and a current account surplus for the 30th month. It also assured North Korea would not deal any major impacts on the South Korean economy.
신흥국 시장에서 자금이 이탈될 거 아닌가 하는 그런 우려들을 하고 있습니다만은 한국 시장은 다른 신흥국 시장과는 근본적으로 다르다.
Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan explained the Korean government would continue to reform the labor market and ease regulations for corporate investment. He also cited his objections to lowering taxes on stock trading, while adding that dividend taxes should be lowered to encourage companies to increase dividend payouts.
Keeping the economic focus here in Korea, the Small Business Distribution Center in Korea is taking flack for connecting large manufacturers and importers with home shopping channels when it was originally meant to lend that support to smaller companies.
These imported designer brand purses were sold on a home shopping channel last month. They cost around $1,400 a piece.
이것도 20점밖에 없어요. 한 달에 12만 원대인데요.
It was the Small Business Distribution Center that had introduced the import company to the home shopping channel in order to make this broadcast possible. The center was established and funded by the government to help small and medium-sized businesses market their products in department stores and home shopping channels. These are the transactions carried out between the center and 6 home shopping companies from 2010 to last August. The center had supplied 204 products from large corporations and import companies to home shopping channels. The sales totals amounted to roughly $188 million.
중국 제품보다는 해외 명품 제품이 인기가 높고 그다음에 이제 판매가도 높아서 수수료 금액도 좀 더 많이 받을 수 있기 때문에 선호하는.
The center explained that large manufacturers and importers accounted for only 10% of its customers, yet could not tabulate the total sales amounts or how much it had earned in fees.
대기업 제품은 금년 6월에 판매 대행을 중단을 했고 병행 수입 제품에 대해서도 판매 대행 계약이 종료가 되면 중단할 예정입니다.
본연의 업무를 방기한 것이고 유통센터가 바르게 할 수 있도록 시정 조치해야 될 것입니다.
The center is being criticized for neglecting its original purpose of helping small businesses in its pursuit of greater monetary profits.
A famous Korean confectionery has been found to have distributed contaminated products worth nearly $3 million for 5 years. The company knew that the products contain bacteria associated with food poisoning, but failed to report to health authorities.
The filters in the dough freezing equipment in Crown Confectionery's factory in Jincheon, North Chungcheong Province are full of bugs and foreign substances. The pipes connected to the cream-making device look filthy as well. The company's quality tests showed that organic wafers that were produced at this factory contained food-poisoning bacteria. The number of bacteria per gram of cookies exceeded the permissible level by up to 280 times.
이틀에 걸쳐 재실험한 거겠죠? 이 일반 세균에 이렇게 재실험이라고 되어 있는 거는 10에 3승 정도 수준 나오니까 재실험을 했는데 오히려 4승 높게 나오고 이렇게 됐네요, 이거는. 그렇죠?
All substandard cookies had to be discarded or recalled, but Crown Confectionery distributed them to the market for 5 years, netting them close to $3 million. Food manufacturers are mandated by law to conduct quality tests every 6 months and report bacteria found in their products to the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety. But Crown Confectionery concealed the fact that its products were contaminated.
업체가 자가 품질 검사 결과를 하여 부적합이 나오더라도 자진해서 보건당국에 보고하지 않는 이상 보건당국에서는 이를 알 수 없고.
Prosecutors have indicted 8 former and incumbent executives of Crown Confectionery on charges of violating the Food Sanitation Act. Meanwhile, Crown Confectionery has launched the recalls of the products in question and ceased production.
Yesterday, Korea marked the 568th Hangeul Day. Events commemorating the nation's famously scientific alphabet were held in downtown Seoul, drawing scores of visitors.
King Sejong the Great passes the public amid enthusiastic cheers. This royal carriage ceremony was reenacted by residents of Sejong Village, located in Jongno-gu, Seoul. It was followed by a promulgation ceremony of the Korean alphabet, Hangeul.
어린 백성이 이루고자 할 바 있어도 마침내 실패하지 못할 놈이 아니라.
The ceremony inspired the public to consider King Sejong's contributions to making the lives of the people easier.
실제로 하는 걸 되게 처음 봐서 이렇게 연기하시는 것도 보고 행사하는 것도 보니까 되게 뜻깊은 하루인 것 같습니다.
People dressed in Confucian school uniforms have gathered in the downtown area of Seoul. Children and grown-ups alike show off their calligraphy skills. They draw each stroke with extra care. Some of them have come from abroad, but their Korean writing skills are quite impressive nonetheless.
한글 너무 좋아서 특히 서예했을 때 마음은 아주 행복하고 변하는 마음이 느껴요.
This exhibition puts on display colorful cards featuring Hangeul. Visitors take photos of the cards while children write their own cards to deliver to their mothers. A ceremony commemorating the 568th anniversary of Hangeul was held at the Sejong Center for the Performing Arts to remind people about the preciousness and excellence of the Korean alphabet.
It is commonplace to have more than one cleaning sponge in the kitchen, but do you know how to choose the right one and how to keep them clean? Here are some of the do's and don'ts of kitchen sponge selection and care. There are many kinds of kitchen sponges. Rather than just using one sponge for all dishwashing purposes, it's better to set aside certain sponges for specific purposes. Porous, non-scratch sponges absorb water well, and their soft texture makes them one of the most versatile sponges in the kitchen. The tougher green dishwashing pads are great for getting rid of grime and used often for house cleaning purposes as well. The cleaning power of the two scrubbers was compared by rubbing the pot lids 5 times with each one. When enlarged, the cover washed with the multi-purpose scrubber had more scratches. Can you see the lines on the left side image?
보시다시피 다목적 수세미를 현미경으로 보면은 이러한 미네랄 연마제들이 있어서 그런데요. 얘네들이 이제 그런 기스라든지 흠집을 유발시킬 수 있습니다. 따라서요. 이런 스테인리스 그릇이나 아니면 도자기류 이런 고급 식기류들은 이런 스폰지 수세미로 닦는 것을 추천을 드리고요.
Steel mesh scrubbers tend to scratch a lot, so don't use them to wash china or stainless steel products, but only to clean house. Let's find out how to make the best use of each scrubber type.
수세미는 용도에 맞게 사용하시는 게 좋은데요. 또 사용하신 후에 또 설거지한 후에 관리법이 또 따로 있어요. 그걸 지금 알려드릴게요.
Dishwashing pads with more cleaning power are better for scorched pots or the greasy rims of frying pans. Be careful not to scrub off the coating. You don't have to exert a lot of force to remove the gunk. Porcelain or plastic dishes are prone to scratches, so they should be washed with non-scratch sponge pads to prevent damage. Acrylic wash pads are environment-friendly for their ability to absorb and break down grease.
이 아크릴 수세미는 세제 없이도 잘 닦아지거든요. 그러니까 간편한 설거지가 나올 때는 굳이 세제 사용하시는 것보단 이 아크릴 수세미를 사용하시는 것이 간편합니다.
Here are some do's and don'ts of kitchen sponge care. The stainless steel mesh should be rinsed in water to remove any food matter before sterilizing in boiling water for 10 minutes. Boiling a non-scratch kitchen sponge for too long could ruin its shape and generate endocrine disruptors. So it's safer to disinfect them in boiling water for only about a minute. Lastly, don't boil acrylic pads for sterilization, but just soak them in hot water with a tablespoon of baking soda for 10 minutes. Germs can multiply quickly in wet sponges, so it's important to dry them quickly and thoroughly.
수세미 말리실 때 주의할 점이 있는데요. 너무 햇볕이 드는 직사광선에 쪼이는 것보다는 이렇게 이제 잘 펴서 바람이 잘 통하는 곳에 두시는 것이 더 좋아요. 왜냐하면 햇볕에 너무 강하게 쪼이게 되면 이 조직이나 이런 섬유 같은 게 손상이 될 수도 있으니까.
Disinfected kitchen sponges should be dried thoroughly in a well-ventilated area. Kitchen sponges help keep your dishes and pots clean and sparkling, but neglecting them can threaten your family's health. So try to sterilize them often and replace them regularly.
This is why I always wonder. I'm a pond full of regrets. Tide will rise and fall along the bay, and I am not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. People come and go and walk away, but I am not.
Now we'll take a look at the markets, followed by the world weather. That's it for this edition of News Today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.